Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and welcome back to the NFL edition of Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the football games for Sunday and Monday for the Week 6 card. If you like what you see, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Put your NFL picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets in the NFL, college football, Major League Baseball, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Week 6 in the National Football League. First up, the London game between the Jaguars and the Bears. This one, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. It's going to be on NFL Network. We see the Bears as a small favorite in this one. The total is going to be right around 45 points. And we know the Jaguars have a lot of experience in these London games. It seems like they play at least one London game every year. Last year they played two. This year they're going to play two. Next week they play the Patriots. And they've fared pretty well in these London games. I mean, last year they swept they won both of their games against the Falcons and the Bills, 23-7 and 25-20. Solid Bills team there, and nice win there from Jacksonville. And I like their chances in this game. I mean, this is a Jaguars team at a miserable start to the season, but the last couple of weeks their offense has kind of found some life, especially in that last game against the Colts. Almost 500 total yards, 20 first downs, 5.5 yards per carry, and over 350 passing yards. So the defense still has its question marks, but I don't really trust this Bears offense, an inexperienced offense in a London game against a Jaguars team. It's been there, done that. And you got to give credit to Williams and company for that performance against Carolina. 36 points, 400 yards, but the offense has been one-dimensional. They haven't been able to run the football consistently, only 95 rushing yards per game and 3.5 yards per carry. I like the Jags in this one on the money line, but you can take the points just in case. Next up, we see the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Green Bay Packers. We're going to see the Packers as a sizable favorite in this game. Total is at 48. And when you're looking at underdogs this season in the NFL so far, the first 5 weeks that are getting a good amount of points, 5.5 or more points, they've done very well against the spread. And also, they've done pretty well straight up if you bet them on the money line. There's been a lot of upsets this season in the NFL. But a lot of times these trends don't last against the spread betting. And I do think the trend kind of flips this week, maybe going forward, but at least this week, I am looking at a good amount of favorites that are laying, sizable points, and I like them to win and cover the number. Green Bay's one of them. I mean, the Cardinals are in a pretty clear letdown spot after their comeback upset victory over a divisional rival in the San Francisco 49ers last week by just a point, 24-23. Give them credit for that great performance, but this is your second straight road game for a team's defense that I still don't really trust. I think it's been better than expected, but still, giving up right around 6 yards per carry the last 2 weeks is a concern for me. I just think Green Bay's offense scores at will, moves the ball at will in this game. And while the Packers' defense may not be as strong as expected, I think it's better than Arizona's. I think they make enough stops to win this game and cover the spread. Next up, we see the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Tennessee Titans. This game is basically at a pick'em right now. I see the Colts favored at some books. I see the Titans favored at most books. And, it makes sense. I mean, you got the Colts, very strong offense, even with Joe Flacco in there, but a miserable defense to start the season. Could be the worst defensive team in the NFL right now. And on the other side, you've got the Titans, who we know they haven't done much offensively this year, but their defense has held teams to under 300 yards 3 times in their first 4 games. For me, I like the Titans. They're rested, playing at home. I usually do tend to side with the defensive teams in a close line like this in a pick'em. And, Joe Flacco, he has been excellent taking over for Anthony Richardson. Richardson may return for this game, but the offensive line hasn't really held up too well recently. We know the defense in the secondary especially giving up 72% to opposing quarterbacks in terms of completion, giving up, 5.5 yards per carry last week, and that was against the Jaguars. Not a great team there. Now you go on the road for your second straight road game, divisional game. I just think it's a tough spot for the Colts to be in. I like the Titans to win this game, cover the slim number at home. Next up, the Houston Texans and the New England Patriots. The Texans are the big-time favorite on the road, and the total is at 38.5 points. Now, I mentioned I like a good amount of these favorites that are, sizable favorites this week, but this is not one of them. I actually like the Patriots in this game. We know that Nico Collins, the number 1 target, by far for the Texans this season, is out for this game, and looks like, he's going to be out at least 4 weeks because he was placed on IR. And that's a big loss. 489 yards. Stephon Diggs is number 2 on the list with 233. So that's a lot of offense to replace. And I think the Texans' offense will still be fine. But this is a one-dimensional offense right now. Joe Mixon may return for this game. but the Texans have ran for less than 100 yards in 3 of their last 4 games, and that other game was only 101 rushing yards. So they're really a one-dimensional offense. The offensive line has not really done too well to start the year. They're giving up a lot of yards on the ground as well. And against a Patriots team, Drake May, we've mentioned the backup quarterback theory in the NFL. I love my backup quarterbacks. Last week, the Patriots offensive line held up much better than what we saw in the previous weeks. They ran the ball very well against Miami. Ramondre Stevenson had a great game. And I think that Drake May can make some plays. The Patriots offense does enough, not really much, but enough to cover the spread. I think they have a strong defensive team and playing at home. I'm going to take the points, and then Texans win this game by around 4 points. So give me the points with New England. Next up, we see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the New Orleans Saints in the NFC South. We're going to see the Bucs as a 3.5-point road favorite. Total is right around 42 points. And when you're looking at that Thursday night game between the Bucs and the Falcons, the final score and all the yards that were earned by both teams, and the fact that both teams moved the ball at will in that game, and then you look at a total like this, it looks kind of alarmingly low, but I think it's for good reason, and the under has really dominated this series recently. The last 4 meetings were all unders, and 7 of the last 9 meetings, so 7-2, the under is in the last 9. I like the under again in this game. I think the Saints offense, we've seen it be really one-dimensional recently. They haven't been able to run the football in the last 3 games or so. No surprise they're 0-3 in those games. And, the backup quarterback's in, and Jake Haener, he didn't look great in that limited action on Monday night against the Chiefs. I think he struggles against the Bucs defense that got exposed last week, but I think, it's nice to see them have 10 sacks in the last 2 games combined. On the flip side, I've mentioned that Baker Mayfield is fine if you give him time in the pocket. If you put pressure on him, that's where he starts to struggle. And we've seen the Saints have a solid pass rush to start the season, earning 14 sacks and sacks on 7.6% of their opponent's passing plays. So I look for this game to be a pretty ugly divisional battle. I think both teams struggle to run the football. I like the under in Bucs Saints. Next up, we see the Cleveland Browns taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are the biggest favorite of the week at 9 points. Total is at 42.5. I like the Eagles in this one. I mean, this is a Browns team I just can't back right now. I thought last week was a good spot for them against the Washington defense that I'm still not completely sold on. And the Browns put up 212 yards, barely anything in the passing game. They were sacked 7 times. And this is a Browns offensive line that the last few years has been very, very sturdy. It makes you wonder, is it the offensive line or is it Deshaun Watson? I think it's a little bit of both, but it's still a team I cannot back. The defense is also, which was, considered a really good defense going into the season, didn't hold up at all last week against the Commanders. They gave up 215 rushing yards. And the thing is, if your offense can't stay on the field for more than 3 plays and your defense is forced to go out there often, no matter what defense it is, it's going to be gassed and it's going to give up those points and yards. And we saw that against the Commanders. Daniels had his way in that game. And I think that the same thing goes for a rested home team in the Eagles that are still, you look at their record 2-2. This is a must-win kind of game. You can't let these games, slip pass you by. So I'm going to go with the Eagles in this game in a blowout. I think the Eagles win and cover the number. Next up, we see the Washington Commanders taking on the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to see the Ravens as a 6.5-point favorite. Total is at 52 points. It's a steep total. When you got 2 offenses that have put up crazy numbers, crooked numbers in the last few weeks, it makes sense. But for me, I like the Ravens to win this game and cover the number. Another big favorite that I like to win and cover the spread because, like I mentioned, I'm still not sold on this Commanders defense. Yes, it's been better recently, but look at the teams that they played. The Browns, the Cardinals, the Giants, Cincinnati when they were struggling. Now you face the Ravens, who have played the Cowboys on the road, the Bills. They also played Cincinnati on the road, but they played the Chiefs as well at Arrowhead. The Ravens, I think, are much more battle-tested, and they're putting up, the same impressive numbers, running the ball for 6 yards per carry. Lamar's been, the real deal this season. Derrick Henry now the favorite to win Offensive Player of the Year. And the Ravens' defense has been special against the run. The secondary's been shaky here and there. We know Joe Burrow had a great week last week, but I think the Ravens do enough here to win this game, cover that spread. Next up, we see the Chargers and the Broncos. The Chargers are a 3-point favorite. Total is right around 35 points, so a pretty low total. And it makes sense when you look at the Chargers team this season, only putting up 17 points per game, but only giving up 13. So they've been one of the better defensive teams this season. But for me, honestly, I just don't really have the best read on this Chargers team right now. I'm not sure what we're going to see from them in this game. The great start to the season with wins over the Raiders and the Panthers, pretty weak teams, but they were blowout wins. And then you look miserable offensively against the Steelers and the Chiefs. And, Justin Herbert's injuries may have a lot to do with that. But, I mean, they couldn't run the football. The offensive line did not hold up. So now you have your bye week going into this game. Like I said, I just not really sure what we're going to see from LA in this spot. We know the Broncos have really impressed recently. They're on a 3-game win streak. We had the big time play on them against the Bucs a few weeks back on the money line and plus the points. But they also beat the Jets as a big time dog. And then against the Raiders last week, I'm leaning towards the under in this game. I don't really trust either offense right now, especially with their ground game. And I think we see both defenses step up, but a game I'll be staying away from. Next up, the Steelers and the Raiders. Another low total in this game, and the Steelers are the road favorites by 3. I like the Raiders in this game plus the points. I just think the Steelers, another team similar to the Chargers, had a great start to the year. Now, the last couple of weeks, some pretty lackluster showings. I think that this is a game where if the Steelers lose this game and it's not a great offensive showing from Fields and overall the offense, I wouldn't be shocked to see Russell Wilson take over next week. He's back at practice, playing with the second stringers, but Fields, the last couple of weeks, shaky numbers. They had 7 sacks, given up, the Steelers did in those last 2 games. And, of course, the Cowboys gave the Steelers plenty of chances in that one to win that game. Steelers were +2 in the turnover battle, but they couldn't take advantage and steal that one. So now you have some worries on the defense, giving up 445 yards and 336 passing yards. I think the Raiders, a team that's been craving a breakout performance offensively with the passing game, I think they get it in this one. I think that the Raiders win this game, and I'll take the points just in case. Next up, we see the Detroit Lions taking on the Dallas Cowboys. The Lions are a 3-point favorite on the road. Total is at 52.5 points. It's the steepest total of the week. I think it's too steep. I think, obviously, when you look at both of these offenses in the last games, they were, great. I mean, the Cowboys, 445 yards. The Lions, we saw Jared Goff go 19 of 19 passing, 42 points. It looked like a college football game at times with how easily the Lions were scoring. But I still think both of these defenses are severely underrated in the NFC, especially Detroit. I mean, this is a team, we know their offensive line is strong, but this is a team that's given up less than 100 rushing yards in 3 of their first 4 games. They have a strong pass rush led by Hutchinson. And I think the Cowboys, I mean, we know this team has not been able to run the football this year. They've been held under 100 rushing yards in 3 of their first 5. They're only averaging 3 yards per carry. It's been a one-dimensional offense all the way. I still don't love this offensive line. I think we see some TFLs, some sacks, and a lower scoring game. Not necessarily a super defensive battle, but at 52.5 points, we have a lot more wiggle room. So give me the under in this one. Next up, the Falcons and the Panthers. The Falcons are a 6-point favorite right now. The total's at 47.5. For me, I just can't lay this many points with the defense I don't trust at all. I mean, this is a Falcons defense. In the secondary, they're giving up 74% completion to opposing quarterbacks. They've only earned 5 sacks on the season. It's only 3.3% of their opponents' passing plays. They are missing tackles left and right. If you watch a Falcons game so far, at least this season, a lot of broken tackles and opposing team. I mean, we saw last week the Bucs, who are not known for running the football. I mean, they've had one of the worst running games in the last 5 years plus. They ran for 6.2 yards per carry and 160 rushing yards. So that's a real big concern for me. On the road, I know Carolina's been tough to watch at times this year for most of the season, but I think that they put up enough. I think they have a strong offensive day, put up enough points to cover this number. I like the over. I lean towards the over, but give me the points with the Carolina Panthers. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the New York Giants. The Bengals are a 3.5-point favorite right now. The total is at 48 points. And I say right now because I do record these and then edit the videos with the graphics and put the lines in. So sometimes the lines I say don't really match up with the lines that are on the screen or the current odds that you can find. And that definitely matters when you're betting these games in the NFL, especially. I mean, a game like this, I think that the number really does matter. I could certainly see the Bengals winning this game, but failing to cover that 3.5. The hook, I think, is really key for this one. I like the Giants plus those 3.5 points because I could see this being a field goal game either way, but I just think the Giants, we've seen them impress a little bit more than expected. They've won 2 of the last 3 games. Daniel Jones has been a little bit more than a game manager recently, and that's even without last week Malik Neighbors, who was out with a concussion. It looks like he could return this week, so your number 1 target's back. The offense is starting to move the ball, and also Devin Singletary, who was out last week in terms of the running game. The Giants looked strong last week in Seattle. They not only won the game outright, they won by 9 points. They earned almost 100 more yards in the Seahawks in that game in a tough environment. They had 7 sacks, and they've had 16 sacks the last 3 weeks combined. So really impressive stuff. I think the Giants cover the number. I think they could certainly win the game outright, but I'm going to take those 3.5 points. And the final game for Week 6 in the NFL is the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. We see the Bills as a 2.5-point road favorite. The total is at 40.5 points. Now, the Jets fired Robert Saleh earlier in the week, and I think for a team that not only had high expectations, but Super Bowl aspirations this year going into the year, I think it was the right decision. For a team that's 2-3 right now, we saw the last couple of weeks pretty ugly performances and some questionable play calling on both sides of the ball. I think it definitely needed a change, and I think that the Jets going forward is still a team I'm not ready to give up on. I still think they're very talented on both sides of the ball. We saw them go in a hole early in that game against the Vikings. They were able to claw their way back and have a chance to win that game late. I like their chances to put together a signature win in this game against the Bills team is starting to struggle. They played well against their weaker opponents, but now as they stepped up in competition, they have not looked as strong. In a home game, we know it's going to be a huge home field advantage for the Jets. I like New York to win this one, and I'll take the 2.5 points just in case. And that's it. Those are the games for Week 6 in the NFL. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and put those football picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.